Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Joe Woolley, CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and it's great to have you at our February Member Connect, where we talk with our members about their business and the work they are doing here in Nashville. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, through this platform called StreamYard. It's great to see so many people joining us already, and I'm sure we'll have others join throughout the broadcast. This will be archived and put on our website and all of these platforms so you can go back and watch anytime. But Member Connect has really become one of my favorite programs that we're doing. It's a way for us to talk to some of our over 500 members of the Chamber and really get to know what they're doing on a better level and to share it with you, the community. So while you're watching on whatever platform you're on, you can see the comments section are open on all platforms, and you can put your questions and input and comments there at any time. Send them in during the presentation and we will get to them. Questions that might need to be addressed right away, I'll ask our speakers to elaborate on those, and if it can be held till the end, that's when we'll ask it. But please do remember, make those comments, and we'd love to hear from you and have you be a part of this conversation. This program is part of our Rainbow Connection series. This series includes networking events, educational opportunities, and connections to the community. That's what we do here at the Nashville LGBT Chamber: advocate, educate, and connect. Check out our website for more information on all our upcoming events. We like to say around here, if it's a Thursday, we're having a program. Coming up, we've got a Network Connect next week, PM Brewing Up Business, Thursday, February 18th at 5:30. We've got a Classroom Connect on the Accidental Activist on Thursday, February 25th at 11 a.m. And Corporate Connect, which is our program of over 55 corporations where they get together and talk about diversity and inclusion and employee resource groups. If you're part of a corporation and would like to be a part of that, please reach out to us and let us know. And if you'd like to be featured on a future Member Connect in the months ahead, please reach out to us. Our schedule is filling up fast, but we'd love to profile you either here or in one of the many articles that we publish about our members. So let us know. We'd love to profile you. Today, we are excited to highlight a small business member and a corporate member. So we always try and have a theme with these when we do them for the month that we're in. And well, the legislature is in session, and the Chamber and the LGBT community, really everybody, should be paying attention to that. So our theme for this month is government affairs. And we're going to be hearing from two companies that deal in government affairs, specifically with one, and then one that government affairs is an important aspect of their business. We are going to hear from Schmidt Government Solutions, a certified LGBT business enterprise, and then from Amazon, one of the largest corporations in the world and a business that has a strong government affairs department and that is doing so many things here in their new home of Nashville. So let's get started with our small business member, Jim. Would like to bring in Jim Schmidt. Jim, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. So Jim Schmidt is a longtime community partner and member of the Chamber. Jim is a past board member of the Chamber. Jim is heavily involved in the National LGBT Victory Fund, which works to get openly LGBT individuals elected to public office. That's from dog catcher up to President of the United States. They were involved heavily with Pete Buttigieg's campaign for president. Jim's been involved in the community in a number of different ways, but he's been a longtime lobbyist up at the Hill, up at Capitol Hill. Full disclosure, he's also my husband. We've been together for 20 years. But Jim, we wanted to bring you in, a silver level member. Thank you for being a part of the Chamber in so many different ways. And we wanted to bring you in to talk about legislation, to talk about lobbying and what you do. So start us off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and about your business.
Great. Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody today. And thank you for all the good work that the Chamber does. It's really important for everybody to be engaged in the public policy discussions that take place at both the state level and the federal level. And I feel that especially since that is my business. I've been lobbying around and been around the state legislature since about 1995. My business is Schmidt Government Solutions, but in 1995, I started off as a legislative intern in one of the state senator's offices. There's a great program that I'm young to get engaged and involved with that puts you in a legislative office for a legislative session, and you learn all about the process. That's where I got my start, and then I eventually worked my way into working with my longtime mentor, a longtime lobbyist on the Hill, and learned the ins and outs of how to lobby the state legislature. So some of you may be asking, well, what exactly do lobbyists do? My firm, and I've got a couple of people who work with me who help me with this, but we basically represent organizations, associations, corporations, and anybody who needs to have a voice heard at the state legislature. So there's a lot of different aspects of that. There's about 2,000 bills that are filed every year at the state legislature. They impact everybody's life in so many different ways. It could impact you professionally. It can impact you personally. It may impact the ability of you to actually do your job. So it's important to have a voice with our elected officials to let them know what the impact is, so you might avoid something bad going forward. So we actually monitor all those bills and help our clients kind of have a knowledge base about what these bills might do, who the people are that are introducing them, and also how we might be able to influence their decisions and maybe change them to make them either better or defeat them if there's no way to fix them. So part of that process is once we identify all these bills and work with our clients to come up with positions on them, we then actually go and engage and discuss the bills with the lawmakers. Part of the value of a company like mine, which does lobbying and government affairs work, is that we know the people involved in the process. We know the actual legislative process. And if in my case, I've been around for a number of years at the Hill, we know a lot of people in state government, both at the department level, at the governor's level, as well as with all of the lawmakers who get reelected either every 2 years or every 4 years. So we've got existing relationships with them as well that we can tap into to hopefully have a successful outcome for our clients. So we go and lobby the bills through the process, and we know the committee process and when we need to go talk to lawmakers about particular bills. We'll go and have a conversation about them, about the impact, and try to offer different solutions that they might look at instead of a particular way that might negatively impact somebody. We also help clients work through their grassroots strategy to influence those decisions as well. So if you're a part of a membership organization, or if you're like Amazon and you've got 20,000 employees in the state, we'll help a business kind of organize those folks and actually conduct outreach from those workers to their lawmakers to let them know the impact that it could have on Amazon on that particular issue. So we'll help them work through that. And then also we just help clients develop an overall public policy strategy to really put together their government affairs program here in the state. Most of our clients at Schmidt Government Solutions are healthcare related. It kind of became a niche business for me a few years ago. I represent mostly providers, hospitals, physician groups, behavioral health providers, but I've also got some kind of one-off clients too, who may be like the Tennessee Craft Brewers Guild, which is all the small breweries across the state. And we help represent them at the state level and make sure that lawmakers both know them and then know their issues up here. There are different types of lobbyists. So you could have a lobbyist like me who's a contract lobbyist who represents a whole bunch of different clients. There are lobbyists like Michelle and Courtney, who you'll hear from in a little bit with Amazon, that are internal to a company who may work in their government relations division of the company and really focus on lobbying lawmakers and working with people like me in order to be successful for companies. And then there's folks that may work in like an association, like the Tennessee Hospital Association, who have internal staff who work with their members to craft a really successful public policy strategy for those companies. So there's different types of lobbyists. I'm a contract lobbyist, and I have 10 different clients touching all different aspects, but we go and work with all levels of state government to make sure they're successful. The other thing I always like to tell people is I know lobbying gets a bad reputation sometimes, especially on the state level, but really everybody has a lobbyist, and it's everybody's right to have a lobbyist. It's enshrined in the Bill of Rights, in the First Amendment. Everybody focuses on the free speech part of that, but the last part of that also says that everybody has a right to petition the government for a redress of their grievances. And that's basically the ability of companies, people, individuals to go and talk to their lawmakers about particular bills. And it's so important. People don't realize how much state government sometimes does impact their lives. We talk a lot about the federal level, but I like to say that the state level and even really the local government level at cities and counties impacts your life a lot more than the federal government usually does. A lot doesn't move quickly in the federal government. State level moves very quickly. So we just started the legislative session, like Joe said. We go in every second Tuesday of January. The General Assembly comes back into session, and they will meet for almost 4 months. And they'll talk about a whole slew of issues going forward. And they'll also, within state government, there's also a whole rulemaking process that state departments and agencies propose different rules that govern all sorts of professions. It's important to follow those along because those can impact you as well. And part of what our firm does is help guide businesses and professions through that process to make sure that they know the impact of those bills, that they're aware that they're coming, and that there is an ability to change those and give their input directly into those agencies to change, hopefully, anything negative that might be in those, or help support something that's positive as well. That's just as important as fighting things. I always advise my clients, if there's something we can help be supportive of legislators or policymakers on, then we want to make sure that they know that this is a good thing that they're proposing. So at the state level, one of the reasons it's important to have people me out working on your behalf, we want to make sure that these lawmakers, which on the state level are part-time legislators, so they only meet really half the year. They get paid very little for this job. It's usually pretty thankless. So they can't be experts on every single issue out there. They may be an expert in their background. If they're an insurance agent, they get elected, they may know plenty about insurance, but they may not know anything about banking. They may not know anything about craft beers. And that's when a person like me comes and gets involved and educates them and provides that expertise to make sure they're fully aware of the impact of legislation and laws that they may propose. So it is really important to have lobbyists on the Hill. It's also just as important, and even more so to legislators, that they get the input from their constituents, especially if you're in that particular industry. I'll encourage everybody on this call today to really reach out and to know your state lawmakers. You can have a voice with them. You can change their opinion if they hear from enough people in their particular industry or in their district. They care about you directly because you can vote for them, or you can vote against them, or you can run against them. And so that's why it's important to be engaged. I'll encourage everybody. Lauren, if you can pull up my slides, I'll talk a little bit about just kind of general, some of the facts about the General Assembly for those of you who may not know. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, the General Assembly is in session. We've got 33 senators, 99 representatives. They're from all across the state. They're all part-time folks. They're all relatively much down-to-earth people. They're very approachable. It shouldn't be something that people get overwhelmed with or scared about meeting with your state legislator. They want to hear from you and get to know you. They meet over a 2-year period. Usually the first part of the session lasts until about the end of April, the beginning of May. And then there is a whole process that I won't go into all the details of it, but bills get filed and introduced. We're about to hit the bill filing deadline here in Tennessee this week. Today is the bill filing deadline in the Senate. Next week is the House. At that point, members can't introduce any more legislation, so those bills will start to work their way through the committee process for votes. And part of what we'll be doing is help clients follow those along throughout that process and engage and have those discussions with lawmakers as they work through. If a bill goes all through that process and passes both the House and the Senate, then it goes to the governor's office. Assuming the governor doesn't veto it, then it becomes law after that. If he vetoes it, there's a process where it goes back to the legislature and they can override a veto with a simple majority vote if they so choose. But that whole process is part of my expertise, part of what we do for clients. Next slide, Lauren, please. Here's just a couple of helpful hints to help you kind of communicate with your legislators and how to find out who they are. If everyone will write down this email or this website, www.capital.tn.gov, there is a slew of information on there about your state government and your state legislature. You can find your legislator there just by putting in your address. It'll pull up your senator and your representative, and it'll allow you to have all of the contact information for these folks. It is not that hard for people to reach out and talk to their legislators. Email has made this so much easier. It's just as good as letters. Personal emails are, in my opinion, the best, especially that are flavored with your personal experience. I know a lot of organizations use kind of a form email. Those are good, but they don't have the impact really that a personal handwritten email or a handwritten letter to a legislator makes. Also, you can reach out by phone and talk to their staff as well as the member themselves. They will probably personally call you back, and you can share your opinions on various bills. And that does have an impact with members. It is not unusual if I am sitting in a legislator's office and one of their constituents walks in from a day on the Hill or is just in Nashville to come visit them, that they'll shuffle me out the door and the lobbyist out the door. And they want to talk to that constituent because those are the people back home that make the difference. So I'd encourage everybody to try to use personalized communication with lawmakers. It really does make an impact. And Lauren, next slide, please. And then just a few tips for folks. Some of these are real common sense things. And I talked about a few of these. Always try to be courteous to both the legislators and their staff. I know people get upset about some of these issues and especially on some of the hot button issues we see up at the legislature, especially impacting LGBT issues, but always be courteous to these folks. Their staff members are doing their jobs. The lawmakers may have a different perspective than you, but being courteous is always going to get you further than trying to be in somebody's face. Give them a little introduction about yourself, share your personal story. Try to be respectful of everybody's time. These lawmakers see thousands and thousands of people over the 4 months or so that they're in session. Don't forget to listen as much as you may talk. Don't try to dominate the conversation. And if you get to a point where you just agree to disagree, just take that for what it's worth and try not to get into a heated conversation with them. That won't go very far. It'll infuriate the lawmaker and probably make the situation even worse. So thank them for their opinion and time, and try to always have fun when you're having these conversations. Build those relationships. You may not win over that legislator's vote on that particular issue, but there's always another one in the future that you may need them on and maybe have a better alignment of your viewpoints on. So that's a little bit about lobbying 101. Joe, I will kind of kick it over to you and any questions.
Yeah, well, that was a great presentation on your business and then what lobbying is and how to advocate. We talk about advocacy in the work we do, and that really is a detailed look of what that advocate means, what advocacy is. I'd like to step back and talk to you more about just your business. You used to be part of a firm, a law firm, a member of ours, Baker Donaldson, in their government affairs department, and then you went out on your own. You started your own firm. Talk to some of our members about entrepreneurship, about going out on your own and making that leap.
Yeah, it was an interesting leap. It's very scary, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs on here who are starting their own business or have their own business. It's intimidating to think that you're going to be basically fending for yourself. Part of my background was I was with a smaller firm for a long time. We got sort of absorbed into the Baker Donaldson law firm, which for those of you who don't know, I think now they have over 700 attorneys in in 15 or so states. At the time, they weren't quite as big, but they reached a point where I love the law firm. I love the people there. It was great to have the backing and expertise of a really large organization. The flexibility you get for working for yourself really kind of intrigued me. I knew it was going to be tough. But once I took the leap, it's the best decision I ever made. A lot of the people I was working with, as far as client-wise, valued my input and decided to make the leap over with me when I left. And I think having a good base to start with really helped me when I did make that jump over out on my own. So,
do you regret it? Or are you glad you did?
It's great.
Are you glad you took the leap?
I am. It's the great thing about it is my business continues to grow, even during this pandemic, which I know so many people have been negatively impacted with. We still managed to continue to grow, and I think 2021 going forward is going to be even bigger, I hope. So, but it takes a lot of hard work. It's scary.
Well, that is true. That's one thing that the pandemic has not stopped is government passing laws. Talk a little bit. We had a question come in online talking about the heavy majority, Republican majority that we have here in the state of Tennessee. And we all know, we're part of the community, the bills that get filed against LGBT people, against the community here in Tennessee. Talk about being an openly gay man up on Capitol Hill. You know, you've been up there 20 years, or over 20 years now. How has that changed? What has that progression been like? And then feel free to share anything else you want on the question that was asked.
Yeah, well, it's always been an interesting experience on the Hill. You know, being an openly gay man working in the legislature, the viewpoints up there have not always been very friendly. I mean, even back in the days when Democrats controlled the legislature heavily, it was always a struggle on LGBTQ issues. So, but that's changed over time. I think the viewpoints of Democrats have changed and people have changed over the time period. So, really in my role as representing my clients, I'm working with them to advocate their viewpoints on things. And so they come first and foremost. My personal viewpoints sometimes get pushed over to the side on issues. Sometimes they intertwine with my clients. Sometimes I have clients who are very engaged in some of the legislation that we've seen already filed this year. So the party alignment of the who's in majority does make it a little tougher. Republicans have a different, most Republicans, I will say, have a different viewpoint on LGBTQ issues, but there's plenty of Republicans who, you know, are perfectly comfortable with it. So,
Jim, you've talked a lot about, it seems to me what you're saying with lobbying and government affairs is it's a lot about relationships, and it's building relationships and good communication and being respectful when we talk with legislators and educating them. I think that can be applied to the LGBT issue as well, that, you know, a lot of these rural representatives may have never met an LGBT person, definitely a trans person now, because that seems to be where the anti-LGBT bills are focused now that we do have marriage equality and gay and lesbian rights have advanced so far nationally and socially just in our society. Doesn't that kind of fit lobbying and education and what you do, that it's about educating and those relationships, and that's why it's important for the LGBT community to reach out and make their voices heard and tell their stories?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the number one reason why it's so important for people to reach out to their lawmakers and actually build a relationship with them. You may not get them immediately on LGBT issues, but them just knowing you and knowing your family and your friends and talk a little bit about, your life and build a relationship. I mean, if you're an insurance agent and you're a Republican lawmaker who's filed a bunch of anti-LGBT bills, talk about insurance with them. It's a relationship business. People have a harder time being against somebody that they know, and they know the impact on that person. So that's why I think the Victory Fund is so important. That's why when you look at studies across the country in states and cities and counties where LGBT people are in elected office and sitting at the table with their colleagues and friends, the amount of negative legislation that gets passed goes down. So it's important. It's important that Eddie Manis and Tori Harris, who are the first two openly LGBT members of the House of Representatives, are there. And they can have an impact. They can educate their colleagues on a different level than even their constituents can. So that's why it is important. It's a relationship business. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are out there watching this and you need any type of government affairs expertise or general questions about lobbying, I know Jim would be happy to talk with you. I know there's several LGBT chamber members that have reached out to you for a number of different topics, especially during COVID, because legislation really has shifted in the response to COVID, and small businesses have to be proactive and really do their part to advocate on their behalf of their business and their sectors. So thank you for all you do and for joining us today. And thanks to Schmidt Government Solutions for being part of the chamber. It's kind of a great transition to our next member, talking about government affairs, talking about getting involved, and what we face up at the legislature. Our relationship with our next member, Amazon, started a couple of years ago when we released an open letter opposing discriminatory legislation in Tennessee. Discriminatory legislation, specifically anti-LGBT legislation, harms a business's ability to attract, grow, retain talent here in the state. If you're a company like Amazon and you're moving people here and creating jobs and expanding, it is hard to get people to come to Tennessee or stay in Tennessee when they see discriminatory legislation like that being talked about and then being passed. So Amazon was one of the amazing corporate members that have stepped up and really made their voice heard at the state level. Amazon, when everybody was waiting for the announcement of where HQ2 was going to go, you had cities across the country bidding for that. It got announced that Virginia and New York were getting, a split HQ2 headquarters. And buried in that big announcement, what made everybody excited here in Nashville was that Nashville was getting a logistics hub, and they were going to be building 2 big towers downtown and bringing 5,000 jobs. And those numbers have only gone up as the towers have gone up. And it was so exciting to have Amazon coming in and being part of this community. They worked on the relocation here, coming here. They worked closely with Michelle Brown, my dear friend, who at the time was over at the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, working in their public policy department. And she did such a great job working with Amazon. They hired her up. Michelle, as you do with everybody, you made such a great impression with them. They said, come work for us. And you were their first hire here in Nashville. And it was a great hire. They could not have done better bringing you over. And you have been working your tail off ever since. You were the only person on the ground, it seemed like, for a while, handling everything. Government affairs is your public policy, your manager of public policy is your title, but you were really doing everything when it first started. So Welcome. We're so happy to have you and Amazon represented. We're going to be talking to Courtney Ross here in a minute about your community impact. But I'd love to transition out of what Jim's just talked about and into kind of your job, your role. Tell us a little bit about that and about yourself and Amazon.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I am a huge, huge fan of you and Jim and love what you all are doing in the community. And I'm just so glad we get to work together professionally at the LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Again, I am Michelle Gaskin Brown. I'm the manager of public policy for Amazon, which means I lead all of our local government engagements. So I am doing our outreach with Metro Council members, Metro agencies. I'm working with all of our chambers of commerce, members of the community, just to create a really good environment for us to advocate and educate the community about what Amazon is doing, as well as making sure there isn't any harmful legislation, regulations, or policies that will negatively impede our business or affect our employees. Just a little bit of background on me for context. I'm a lawyer by trade. I got started in the government affairs world when I was a legislative attorney at the Tennessee General Assembly. And so for 6 years, I drafted legislation and staffed the House and Senate education committees. After I left there, I went to the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, where I got to work with my now Amazon colleague, Courtney Ross, on economic development legislation in front of council. I represented the regional business community in front of the council and making sure that economic development incentive packages were passed. And that is how I got involved with Amazon. And I'm so excited to be part of the team. We have been hiring like crazy. To date, we have 1,000 people in our corporate office. It's a mix of tech and ops positions, and we are excited to get closer to that 5,000 number. We are really excited that our first tower will hopefully be completed soon, and when it is safe, we can go in and get back to work. A little bit of background on Amazon in Tennessee as well, just to show you why our advocacy is so important. We have been in Tennessee for years. Since 2010, we have invested more than $8 billion in the state, including infrastructure and compensation to our employees. We have 25,000 full and part-time jobs, and we have supported 28,000 small and medium-sized business sellers and independent authors in Tennessee. Across the state, we have 7 fulfillment and sortation centers, 2 delivery stations, 6 Whole Food Market locations, 4 Amazon bookstores, 1 Prime Now hub, and 1 Amazon Nashville corporate office. And so we are really excited about investing in Tennessee. We are excited about the growth in Tennessee. We are excited to see the number of corporations bringing their business here, which we think will only make the area a better place. Again, as I said, our goal in public policy is to make sure that our business and our employees are protected. Some of the areas in which we legislate strongly are obviously the slate of hate or discriminatory bills that are in front of the Tennessee General Assembly. One of the biggest things when I first started was making sure that we were vocal and that we do not support these bills anywhere across the country. We want to we want to remain in Tennessee. We want to bring our office to Nashville, and we want to make sure that our employees feel safe and protected and welcome. So we have been a huge vocal opponent of those bills. We're excited to work and encourage other corporations to get involved as well. We will speak out vocally, join coalitions, sign letters, but we just feel that these bills aren't a good representation of Tennessee or what we have going on. So we are proud to work against those. We are also we are also looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a huge component of ours. Social justice. We want to make sure that there's equity in everything that we are doing. We also want to make sure that we are able to deliver everything that everyone is ordering in a timely manner. So we want to make sure that infrastructure and transportation policies are up to date and helpful for us to get those products to you in a timely manner. Again, economic development incentives are huge for us. We are very vocal with our Amazon Future Engineer program that we advocate that students at all levels, K through 12 and higher ed, are learning coding, are learning computer science. It's becoming a part of their everyday norm. So we are also looking to work with local governments and helping with broadband access and participating in those conversations. Affordable housing, as you may know, is one of our newest initiatives. Typically, we've been more involved as a company in homelessness, but we've realized that affordable housing has become an issue all across the country, and it's especially prevalent in 3 areas where we have corporate offices: the Seattle region in Washington State, Arlington, where HQ2 is, and Nashville, where we have our corporate office. We totally support what local governments in the state are doing to increase affordable housing, but we realize that there's also an additional need and that the private sector can come in and aid with that. So we are excited about our $2 billion investment across those 3 regions. Just to help build more units so we can make sure that everyone can stay, who wants to live in Nashville can live in Nashville comfortably and be able to continue to provide for their family. Environment and sustainability is another big pillar of ours. We just want to make sure that with all the logistical and operations work we're doing, we're also not harming the environment. And that is a bit of a background on what we do legislative wise. So I guess I will pause there and see if there are any questions that anyone has.
That's a lot legislative wise. We just heard from Jim on his role in government affairs and his lobbying. How is it different with you being just at Amazon? How do he represents many different corporations. You are Amazon when you walk those halls. Talk about a little bit, elaborate a little bit more on that as you are Amazon with these legislators when you're talking to them. But I know that you bring in other Amazonians to speak. And then I'd love for you to also touch on the local, like the metro or the local jurisdiction that you might be advocating in, and then the state level, because those are very different, but they have such huge impacts on people's lives and on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. So being in government relations for Amazon is pretty interesting because, yes, I'm representing one client, but we have many different business ventures. So instead of just coming in and say, oh, I represent e-commerce, we might be looking at what's going on with small business policy, what's going on with taxes, what's going on with gasoline, the roads. So you have to learn many different ventures. I think coming in and representing Amazon, we've built a great reputation in this state. And to Jim's point, lobbying is all relational. And so you want to make sure that you know who the key players in the industry are. You want to make sure you know who the committee chairs are, who all the legislators are, as well as who are the advocacy partners working behind the scenes. There are often so many foot soldiers working behind the scenes on legislation who are also playing critical parts. And many times the legislators may or may not know who they are. So if we can come in and say, hey, we're Amazon, you know us, you know what we're about, but we also want to bring in these chambers, these various groups to come in and speak in more detail to issues. We are excited to do that. I think that's one of the perks of having the name recognition and working so hard to be a good corporate partner in the community is that we're able to highlight some unknown issues and maybe some unknown people who are really working hard on issues. So I'm excited about that. It is very different lobbying at the local and the state level. We are fortunate to have consultants on the ground in Nashville and who do our state legislation, who are really walking the halls every day, continuing to build those relationships, peeking around corners and letting us know what's coming up, what should we get involved in, what should we stay away from. And so kudos to Jim and all of his hard work, because we truly lean on our consultants to keep us.
You're talking about lobbyists like Jim, contract lobbyists that you have relationships with or contracts to feed you information. So it's not that you are in the halls of the state capitol or the courthouse. You have representatives there and they're giving you information.
Correct. And then we are able to come in if there are opportunity, if we need to escalate, they'll bring us in to speak with leadership or the committee members or other legislators. Will come in and testify. We participate in press conferences and things of that nature. So typically our consultants are doing the everyday work, and we are just coming in, highlighting them on what Amazon is doing on those specific issues and providing whatever other information they need. On a local level, in my position, I kind of work hand in hand with our consultant, and we're just making sure what are the upcoming issues coming down the pipeline, what's going on with affordable housing, what kind of infrastructure needs are going on. So we make sure that we're in close contact with the mayor's office, with council, with the agencies, again, with our chambers. I think for us, it's relational, and we spend a lot of time educating on what Amazon does. I think there are a lot of assumptions that are made, and sometimes we just come in and clear up misinformation just to show what we are doing in the community, what we are doing with our business, and how that impacts the city. And I think the perk of us having such a great relationship with all of the chambers of commerce, but especially the LGBT chamber, is that we are able to come in and help promote some issues. We are also able to say, hey, small business is how we operate. We work with small businesses every single day, every moment of the day, helping them sell their product, store their product, ship their product, and grow their product. And so we're excited about being in the Nashville region and partnering with you to see what can we do better, what can we expound on, and how can we help members, businesses grow, especially in light of everything going on with COVID and everyone having to go virtual and stay home. We have been fortunate to grow in our business, and we're excited that small businesses have been able to grow as well.
We've had many members join the virtual marketplace of Amazon and be able to sell their products there in this virtual world that we're living in now due to COVID. And then also the support for small businesses that you all offer, and trainings and information and how-tos to support your business. Let's pivot over to what you've talked a lot about. This is, okay, the government affairs piece. But then, really actions speak louder than words. And the word up there at the legislature or in the halls of City Hall means something, but it's really the actions that speak the loudest. And when you talk about actions in the community, you guys have made some major ones. Let's bring in Courtney Ross, who is now, responsible for those actions and has made some big ones in just some recent months. And talk about the impact on the community, the give back that Amazon has done for Nashville in just a short amount of time. It really has been remarkable. Courtney, welcome. I'd love to start us off, and actually the council member Nancy Van Rees has also asked in the comment, would love to hear an update on affordable housing and investment initiative, because that one was major, and I think the most recent one to be highlighted, but you guys have done a lot of other work too. So welcome, Courtney. Tell us a little bit about the community engagement.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And Councilmember Van Rees, we will get to that in just a minute. I'm going to make Michelle answer that question. She's better at that topic than I am. But thank you so much, Joe and Michelle and the entire chamber for having me. As you mentioned at the start, I also worked at the chamber for the last 12 years. And most recently leading the economic development team, which happened to work on the HQ2 project, where Michelle and I worked together really hard on this project. And now here we are working for Amazon. So we're thrilled to be here. My little sidebar is I started working in economic development in 1997 for the state, where I knew Jim roaming the halls of the state. So I can tell you all kinds of stories about Jim later at a different topic. So I was hired in September of 2020, so just a couple months ago, in the external affairs role. And so we've been very busy, connecting to all the organizations that have been reaching out to Michelle since she started, and since we've announced the headquarters in Nashville in 2018. So the last 2 years, we've been really engaged in the community. We started off with some really key investments around education, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But since since we announced in 2018 the 5,000 person Center of Excellence in downtown, we've made tremendous investments in Nashville, and this is just the beginning. We're here to stay. Our investment is long term. As Michelle outlined, we have so many employees in the Nashville region and the state, and we're just thrilled to be a good corporate citizen. So that is my role. My role is to make sure that we are contributing in the Nashville community, both financially and through volunteer efforts and through board engagement. So we're really busy, and we'll continue to do that in 21 and beyond. As we all know, 2020 was an unprecedented year for Nashville in ways that even were different than the rest of the country. We had the tornado, and we were involved in the tornado recovery efforts before I joined Amazon. Then, of course, in pandemic relief. And this is really what we're focused our efforts from September till the end of the year. And just a couple of highlights: we were able to partner with Belcourt Theater to help them reopen safely amidst the pandemic and keep their staff on board. We were thrilled to do that. We kicked off the fundraising campaign for the Nashville Symphony so that musicians could get back to work. It's so important. The musicians in the Nashville community is, as we all know, the backbone of this culture and of the community that we love. And so we worked with the Association of Country Music to make sure that the band members of the bands are also getting paid and had some sort of relief. We helped the Northwest YMCA for those members that had to drop during COVID for financial reasons. We were able to bring them back and really support the Northwest and the North Nashville community in that way. We know that the Y is such a center point for that community. Education, so much relief has been needed in the education arena, as well as, just in general, MMPS support will continue. We supported Pencil. Our Future Engineers program are now in all 72 metro schools. Our involvement in education will continue, I can assure you of that. And then we, of course, had the unfortunate Christmas Day bombing, and we were working on Christmas Day and beyond all through the holidays around supporting the Community Resource Center and Box 55 for making sure that their wish lists were fulfilled through Amazon, and we'll continue to help with the restoration of 2nd Avenue. And just a few more, of course, diversity and inclusion, arts and culture are pillars of Nashville and pillars for Amazon. We were thrilled at the start of this year to announce $1 million donation to the National Museum of African American Music. We are so excited about that partnership that has already begun. And now that Metro School students are back, we are looking forward to being able to sponsor all Metro students and Metro School students and their families to come to the museum free of charge. We want to reduce any barriers because that is such an important institution for Nashville and just for the entire country. And I think I'll stop there. We supported the YWCA. There's so many that we have been able to support. But again, this is just the beginning. We have board members throughout the community. Michelle is a board member of the LGBT Chamber, and we've got other prominent Amazonians on prominent Nashville boards, and we'll continue to do that. We want to be involved, not just financially, but civically engaged. And we know Michelle and I come from this community of civic engagement, and we know that this is what's going to make the greatest impact of Amazon being in this community, and we're just excited to be a part of it.
Well, you two both come from the area chamber, so you know this as well, but and we all know this doing this work. The corporations that really are best at this are the ones that come in and work with the community and get to know the community, and you all are doing that for Amazon because they believe so much in it. It really has been incredible, though, the way they have come in and made investments and focused on the things. You touched on them all, which, well, almost all of them. I was trying to keep track of your list with my list. Starting with information. I mean, you all believe so strongly in education from the beginning to through college or career-ready training. You started there with your investments, and then it's just expanded from there, going all the way to helping the Belcourt, Jim and gem of the city reopen and funding them. We have a comment from Deb Grant online that says, thank you for supporting our arts community. During COVID, the arts community has been hit so badly. Guys, tell us a little bit more about what you've done for the arts community.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because I did not mention our museum, our support of the Nashville Children's Theater, another jewel of this community. And there's so many, and I know we haven't even scratched the surface.
I think the Children's Theater is near and dear to Jim and I's heart, and a longtime member that has really pushed diversity and inclusion there. And it was a great connection to make over to our friends at Amazon. So thank you for that support. And I'm glad you did mention.
Of course, that is, again, there's so many. Nashville will not be the same if the museums and the cultural institutions, the musicians don't keep playing and the tourism doesn't come back. And we know that that's where we need to play. And so, we're also, well, as you start to see our building come to life, we're going to incorporate local art, and so we just really feel strongly in the arts community. And again, Michelle and I know we're both local, and we're not new to Nashville. We're new to Amazon, but not new to Nashville, and so we understand, what really makes Nashville tick, and that's the reason Amazon chose Nashville. And so we really want to make do what we can to make sure to keep the arts community going. And so if you have ideas, send them my way. I'm sure there's others.
To plug another member, Oz Arts Nashville,
yes,
where we will be speaking at their storyteller event, Conversations at Oz, coming up. I'm actually, Jim and I registered to be at your table, virtual table, to listen to you talk more about this. But there's lots of opportunities. Check out our members, and then, everybody needs your support right now. So if you're joining
Michelle's actually one of the co-chairs of that event. So please.
She spoke last year, and then I was the year before that. So it's a great event. We had another question that came in talking about community engagement, and then tying it to government affairs. Marissa Swispen writes, does your advocacy work translate directly to your PR, public relations? Do you use a lot of your advocacy progress in your storytelling? I think you've hit on a lot of it, but I would, being on the other side of it and working with you all, I don't think you invest, being one of the organizations that you all have invested in, I don't think you came to us and said, it's going to tell a good story to work with the Nashville LGBT Chamber. You care about what we're working on, and you care about what we're doing. And I think it's been like that with the other things you've supported, from affordable housing, again, to education. You care about those issues, so you invest in them. And I think the PR can come after that. But your advocacy policies also speak to that investment. You're not saying, we have there are some businesses out there that say, we believe in diversity and inclusion and we're for LGBT rights, but then never speak out or invest in the community. Amazon is the other way around, where you're speaking out and you're signing letters and you're investing in the community. And then that message comes out, yes, we believe in diversity, inclusion, and equity, and here's what we've done to prove it. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that chicken before the egg type of investment.
I think from the advocacy side, as soon as it was announced that Amazon was coming to Nashville, there was a team of Amazonians who came to Nashville and kind of met with all of the community and advocacy partners. And from that moment on, every time we engaged with council or the mayor or anyone in the community, it was, hey, you all need to invest in this. You need to invest in affordable housing, invest in our schools, because if you do it, others will, and that will show that you are really trying to be intentional here. And the thing about Amazon in Nashville is that we are not trying to replicate what any other Amazon office is doing. We want this to be unique to Nashville. So the artwork in our buildings will be from local artist. We want to make sure that everything we are doing is Nashville based because we want to be a community member here. We don't want to just drop down and say we're Amazon, we know everything. And I started in June of 2019, and the second I accepted the job offer, I started getting calls about where to invest and what we should participate in. And we kind of spent a year and a half just relearning the community. As Courtney said, we're from here, but we also had to look and see what can Amazon do? What do we do best? What aren't we great at? So we should maybe stay away from, and how can we be a good corporate partner? So hiring Courtney and just the investments that she's been able to make on behalf of Amazon have been critical. And I think it's showing the council members who voted on our economic development incentives and who have spoken out in support of us that they are here. They said a year and a half, 2 years ago, they were going to invest in affordable housing. They were going to make sure that their workforce was diverse. They were going to make sure that the state didn't think this discriminatory legislation was okay. And we've been able to show that. And I think the PR is not, it's more of an afterthought for us. Traditionally, we don't do a great job highlighting the things we're doing in the community because we want our actions to speak for ourselves, but we're not looking for any applause or anything.
And I would just add that that our external affairs operation or organization in Nashville is hyper-local, and there's so many similarities with Amazon's pillars and Nashville's pillars and priorities that intersect, and that's really where we'll focus our efforts of, what does Nashville need, and then how does that align with what Amazon's priorities are? And there's a lot of alignment, and so that's making it an easy job for me.
So, like, can we make news here today? Is there any big initiative you want to announce?
No news today. You know us better than that. But we're excited about 21.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you here. Give us an update, Michelle. You teased the tower is the second tower is being still under construction. The first tower looks complete, but it's probably being fixed up inside. I saw a report you've hired over 1,000 jobs.
Yes.
Give us an update on the building and the jobs and where people can go to apply and look at jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so our first tower is up, an exterior, and we are hoping that it will be finished and completed before the end of the year. Fingers crossed. We all know how things can go with construction, but downtown has been pressing forward with all the projects. So we are looking forward to getting back in when it is safe. We have hired around 1,000 people, getting closer and closer to our goal of 5,000. If you go into Google and just type Amazon Nashville jobs, you will see our website will come up where you can apply for so many different jobs. Yes, it is an operations hub, but we are hiring for every position you could need in a corporate office, executive assistants, finance, tech, legal, PR, communications. So if anyone is interested in applying, please do. Our recruiters are working like crazy. And so we are really excited about that.
Great. Yeah, you can, lots of jobs out there.
Yes.
On our website as well, and then link over to yours. It's hard to keep up with them all, but very exciting. And the tower looks great. The second one's coming along. We drove around Nashville, and I didn't recognize streets. That whole area that you all are moving into really has transformed a lot in the year that we've been locked inside. I won't hear the end of it if the Honorable Nancy Van Reese's question isn't specifically addressed. Michelle, I'm going to take that to you. Would love to hear an update on the Affordable Housing Investment Initiative.
Okay, yes, my apologies. I made a note of that question and then forgot about it. I apologize. So yes, we have invested $2 billion in 3 of our corporate offices, the Washington State, Seattle area, Arlington, Virginia, where HQ2 is, and in Nashville, where our corporate office is. Affordable housing has been a huge problem in these areas, and Amazon has just been trying to figure out how can we work with the public, with the government, local government, to increase the number of units. So our goal is to create or preserve 20,000 units. And with that $2 billion, we are providing below market capital, lines of credit, loans, grants, to partner with housing agencies and developers who want to scale up and build a ton of affordable housing in the area. We've also recognized that there is an issue of equity in building affordable housing, and oftentimes everyone who is involved doesn't have a seat at the table. So we have a separate $125 million in grants set aside to make sure that we are working with minority-led nonprofits that benefit minority communities, and minority developers. So if you know of anyone who is interested in them, please contact Courtney and I. And we would love to sit down and talk with anyone about that. We do not have a specific idea of what affordable housing should look like. We want to make sure that we are investing in a ton of different ideas. Amazon is the funder. We are not dictating any details. We are really relying on the housing experts to let us know where, how, and what type. We want to make sure that we are not concentrating affordable housing in certain areas. We want to spread it all across the county. And so we are just excited. We've been talking to a ton of developers and housing community partners just about different projects. And we are excited to draw down as much of that $2 billion in Nashville and get some more affordable housing out here for everyone. So yes, we are really excited about that. And Nancy has been sending us a lot of great people. So again, if you have any ideas, please, please, please reach out to us.
Wonderful. Great recap on that. We've answered the council member's question. I've brought Jim back into the conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us today, for being part of this chamber and making it what it is, and for doing what you're doing for Nashville and the state of Tennessee. It was so great to talk to you all here virtually today. I can't wait to get together with you all soon. Jim, I'll see you tonight. I get to see you in person every day. But thanks again for being a part of the chamber and joining us for our February Member Connect. I'm sure we're going to have additional questions once people see this, and I know you guys will be willing to answer those. Thanks again for joining us, and on to our next, I'm sure, Zoom event on your schedule. So thanks, everybody.